Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphanlast, aka Skylar Madison, and today I'm going to go ahead and start working on a commission piece. This isn't the first commission that I've worked on, but I've actually had a number of commissions that I've worked on in the past. It's just that it's never been so plentiful that it can replace my 9-to-5 job. And I would love for it to replace my 9-to-5 job. It's just that I still need to promote my artwork with my YouTube channel and generally on social media in order for me to get that far. Now, if you guys are interested in having me work on a commission, even though I don't currently have a website, that doesn't really matter. There's plenty of different ways that you can get a hold of me, such as Twitter, and a link to variously different types of ways that you can get a hold of me is in the video description below in all of my videos. Especially Twitter. If you guys want to talk to me on Twitter about a commission, feel free to do so. You might be tempted to contact me through email, but email is kind of dedicated towards dealing with notifications of a different kind than that sort of thing, commission pieces and such like that. Now, with the picture right here, I'm still working with rasters inside of Affinity Designer. And after I got him, the client, to approve of the second draft, I went ahead and just started to refine this second version of the image. And just took a little bit of pointers as to what he wanted, different sorts of magical powers for the character to have, adjustments to the pose, stuff like that. And throughout this whole time, I'm not really overly attached to any one particular line that I've drawn. It's all just kind of sloppily put together, and I'm just putting it together just well enough to make sure that it works inside of a composition, and then refining that composition. Now, the sketch that's actually colored at this point in time, as in the background and stuff like that, and generally from the very beginning of the video, the way that the entire image was looking and how the image currently looks on the screen generally is about as good as how a lot of beginner artists wind up drawing their images. It's just that it feels as though a lot of the newbies out there, what they need to do is they just need to just refine the image more. It seems like a lot of times I see an image that a new artist has gone ahead and made, and it seems like, well, okay, you got a good start here. This is a good composition, a good setup for a good image, but they seem to think that it's a finished image at that point in time, unfortunately. And that's the thing. It seems like with a lot of the newbie artists out there, all you need to do is just keep on working on it. Keep on refining it more and more and more. And consider it a sketch up until the very end. Now, I just started inking it with the vectors, and even throughout this point in time, I'm kind of considering this to be a bit of a sketch, even still, with the vectors down. For example, one thing that really irritates me about the character that I'm currently drawing on the screen is that his page right arm is a little bit too long. And I need to select the line work and then shrink it down, and then select the fills, the colors that I put down, and then shrink those down a little bit more too, in order for me to get this image to look more along the lines of what I'm trying to get it to look like. It's just that the proportions currently seem just slightly, just a little bit off, and yeah, I just need to adjust a few things here and there. But yeah, the most time-consuming thing in this entire process was actually laying down my flat colors, and you'll see me working on that throughout the rest of the video pretty much. It's a really lengthy process. Now, yes, Affinity Designer allows you to have a fill associated with your stroke, but if all of your colors are associated to all these thousands and thousands of different objects that you have, on the screen, what happens when the client comes over to you and says, well, if you could change this color, and this color just a little bit, and if you could put a gradient here and here and here. If all of your colors are scattered across thousands and thousands of different objects, it's going to be a nightmare. I would rather deal with 50 different fill objects rather than thousands of stroke and fill objects all as one. So even though laying down my flats wound up taking up a huge amount of time, that investment of time is not wasted. And that investment is so that if there is a change order, the client says, I don't like this color or that color or these little things here and there, the extra investment in time in laying down my colors is basically to make sure that it's as easy as possible to, and as fast as possible to make those changes, because those changes have the potential to take way longer than it would for you to actually spend the extra time to make sure that the fills are separate objects from the strokes. Now, if there is a way inside of Affinity Designer, and I don't know if there is, but if there is a way inside of Affinity Designer to, I don't know, like basically have your stroke and fill as the same object, and then somehow use Affinity Designer to somehow split the existing fill and stroke into two different objects when they were just one object, I don't know. I don't know if that feature is available inside of Affinity Designer. I would love for it to be inside of Affinity Designer. I just don't know if it really is, to be honest. So I don't know. I'll have to look into it a little bit more, because that would speed me up, and it would also be able to get it so that I can keep my current workflow. But as it currently stands, I don't think that feature is there. If I'm wrong, feel free to leave a comment down below in the comment section. So, yeah. So, yeah, here you just see me just working. About a third of this video is just me laying down my flat colors and everything like that. And, by the end of the video, I feel as though the colors are still a little bit off. But since I'm dealing with vectors, I don't need to use things like blending modes or like I don't know. I don't need to use anything to try to manipulate the colors. I can just change the colors rather quickly in a short period of time. And I actually free-handed, without a reference, anything, the background. I just drew the background without a reference. And since there's no geometric shapes like buildings and stuff like that, there was no perspective work involved. You didn't see me use any vanishing points for a landscape, and like you don't see Bob Ross using a vanishing point because he didn't really paint any buildings, and so same thing with me here. Since I'm basically just making a landscape, there's no reason to have a vanishing point. What's it going to be used for exactly? Because nature is extremely irregular, and so there's no reason to use a vanishing point. But like I said, I didn't use a reference when drawing the background, but it doesn't take very much effort to do a quick Google image search and find a background that has the colors that I generally kind of like, and just use it as a color reference, not so much as something that I need to try to base my entire image off of. Just the colors, just how things look at specific distances, approximate distances, and everything will look pretty good. I'm not really too worried about whether or not I've screwed up the image, because I actually have a really good foundation here. By the end of the video, I have all of the line work finished, and I have all of the flats to the image finished, except for the villain. I still need to do the vector work for the lines and the colors for the villain, and we'll have something pretty good there. I'm not really too concerned about how the villain looks because most of him is exceeding outside of the border. Now, what I mean by that is this is just going to be a banner on Twitter. So I'm not really worried whether or not the villain is going to look perfect. I'm willing to draw things past the border where things start to get cut off because it helps me be able to visualize what the character looks like, at least to some extent, and to make sure that things are anatomically looking pretty good and all that. So that's basically what I'm thinking about with the villain. As for this tree, you guys saw me earlier pop in an image onto the screen, and then I kind of traced out the tree. I was having difficulty doing the vector work on the tree, and I didn't really draw out a very good sketch for a tree. And so what I wound up doing is I grabbed an image of a pine tree that I had already drawn years ago, and since it's my asset, I can just trace it pretty loyally and then just continue from there. And in the end, even if it was a tree that was like copywritten or something like that, the differences from this tree to the tree that was there, it's going to be pretty distinct and obvious, but it's my asset. I can use it however way that I want. I really wish that there was a way to speed up this process of laying down my flats that didn't involve having my strokes and fills as the same object. That's one thing that I am kind of irritated with throughout this entire process, but I don't know. Well, I'll have to figure out some sort of workaround in order for me to kind of speed up my workflow a little bit more. That's my only major concern here. I mean, it is faster. My workflow is faster if additional changes are needed after the fact, but the initial investment of time is a little bit irritating and a little bit unnerving. As you can see on the screen, you can see the final image that I have so far. Of course, this is a work in progress, so I'll continue to work on it. And now, that pretty much concludes it, ladies and gentlemen. If you guys enjoyed it, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And if you guys would like to get more notifications from me, feel free to click on the bell or go ahead and follow me on Twitter. Once again, it's in the video description below. And if you guys would like to see more of my content, feel free to click on anything appearing on the screen right now.